everyone. We are in the Sarajevo Film Festival with Deniz and Andrea, who is director of Happy New Year Gym. Me and Deniz watched this film in selection of in selection of European films, which is created by Bianca Lucas, and also we have interviewed with her too. So it was a coincidence that we watched this movie, and I like your movie a lot. So hi.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Sorry for this long introduction. Hi, Deniz.
Hi, Enes. Actually, we should start right now.
Yeah, he always doing that. So I want to introduce you to movie. In movie, we are watching two friends playing video games on New Year's Eve. But one of the players, Morten, doesn't feel comfortable about that. He meditates on the existence of the characters in the video game and the reality they live in. So the film makes us question our own reality based on the reality of video games. So my first question to you is, in the post-truth and post-COVID era which we live, what we call reality is harder than ever to understand, and all kind of simulation and games created by humans are example of these. So in your film we see this situation through video game characters. In fact, we see that they also live within certain limits and codes, and they are not so different than from our existence. So at this point, can you talk about the origin story of your film and your motivation for making the film?
I was a pro gamer when I was an adolescent, so I really needed to kind of recover that period of my life, because I used to blame myself for spending like 4 or 5 years into video games when I was an adolescent, telling to me, what if I learn guitar or learn singing instead of playing. So I wanted to take back that time from my adolescence and to transform it in something that was good for me. So I said, let's take that experience and bring it into my cinema. So that was the initial motivation. It was very personal, to be honest. But I do tend to feel like Morten in a way. The main sensation that this character is living is the fact that he is missing out on what's happening outside his house and room, and this is a very human feeling. It's not that much related to games in general, but people that play a lot of games get very lonely sometimes, and they tend to have this feeling very much. So this was my main motivation behind making this film. I wanted to try and make a very human conversation, very human story, but watching this dialogue unfold through the screen of one of the two people that are talking in the film.
I sensed the same thing in my first experience of playing video games too. So okay, then we can continue with the question too. So in film we are actually inside of a computer screen throughout the film. So you made your film by recording it. Naturally you don't need to camera. So can you talk about how this affects the form and the narrative of the film? I mean, not using the camera.
Well, it's a practical thing. I wanted to make a film without using a camera because it was a form of disobedience for me against the system of cinema, where you have to wait and put together resources and people. So I told myself, can I make a film in my bedroom? And so the challenge was, don't use a camera. Let's see if other forms of images work in the same way. But it's not the first time that this has been done. If we think about Chris Marker's short films, but what I thought was, what is the equivalent of analog photography today that we may use to tell a story? And you know, games have this imagery which is very peculiar, because it looks real, but if you zoom in, it starts getting very weird and unsettling. It's a feeling that's been baptized as uncanny valley, and so the more you concentrate on the details of a game, the more it becomes unsettling. It really works as a simulation of reality only if you look at it and as a whole, you know. If you look at the landscape, then it's suddenly very real. But if you zoom in the clouds or if you zoom in the trees, everything becomes very unsettling. And I thought that this kind of imagery could be effective for talking about alienation and solitude, because that's how you feel. And when you look at the digital game landscape, and you feel the same wonder that you would feel when looking at the real sunset, something inside you tells you that this is really wrong. So yeah, that's how I use this imagery.
It's like repeating the same word, actually, which you talked about in your movie too. I mean, when you repeat the same word, you just alienate it from it. So it's kind of strange thing. So
Maybe we can call the thing that you made actually creating the archive materials. How do you think about that? Creating archive things without camera, actually.
Yeah, that's what I did when I started working in video games. I was shooting random materials like sunsets or a night sky or images of people, NPC, non-playing characters walking in the city, and I was following them like I was following somebody, and let's see what he has in for me to show. And some of them were very human, and they give you the same feeling that the passerby gives you on the street when you cross them, and you question, what is he gonna do the moment he leaves my line of sight and goes back home?
yeah.
Is he real? Or is it somebody? Will I see him again? Will he have any meaning for me? And with an NPC, you kind of feel the same, because if you don't play the game and you suddenly get out of the storyline and start zooming in on the details, you see a teeming world of weird existences that are very partial and scripted, and you feel some kind of pity for them. Like it's like when you watch artworks, you know. You watch an artwork. Let's say you watch an erotic artwork, and it's painted, but you still feel attracted to it, you know. I think that human beings are very they react to images and not to the real. They don't care whether it's real or not. If the image conveys the same emotional pattern, you will feel something anyway. And that's what was art from the beginning of time, creating this simulacra that were not the real thing but a representation of it. And games do this in a very interesting way.
One of our podcast episodes with Deniz, we interrogated this question actually. The cinema can tell the truth, and some of the directors of After Yang, what was it? Koganade says we created these creatures that for understand our own existence. I mean, he said that we do art for that.
Maybe we can consider your film a conflict between simulation theory and the reality. As you said, if we don't play the game, we get out the line. Maybe you can say something about the simulation theory and similarity between your film. Maybe
I don't really believe in any simulation theory, although this happens in real life as well. You're doing something, and if you try to interrupt what you're doing, like I'm going to the festival tomorrow and I'm walking to the festival, if I try for just a second to stop and change my walking path and go somewhere else, totally unrelated, you start feeling very uneasy, you know, about your own actions. So the game is just, you know, the blueprint for the game is the human condition, but the way it's represented makes you think, what are the essential things that are necessary for a good simulation? That's what a game designer does, you know. When he designs a world, he says, what are the essential things, because we cannot put everything into it.
Yeah.
We cannot go down to the atoms. So we ask ourselves, what are the essential things? And when you see this in a very elaborate game like Red Dead Redemption 2, you can see in a way what humanity thinks is necessary in this very moment to make a copy of the world. And this is a very interesting, you know, topic to talk about, because in 100 years, probably games will be a very interesting anthropological material. And if you look at the game from the 2001, 2002, there was still this thing, what is necessary to represent with the resources we have. The more computing power we will have, the more things we will add. So we are creating a sort of hierarchy of what's necessary, from the most necessary things that were still present there when it was 2000 or 1999 and we had these first 3D games, to the most, you know, to the smallest details that are coming next. And that's a hierarchy of existence,
Yeah.
of the world, if you think about it. So the more you zoom in, as I told you before, the more these hierarchies become evident, because you can suddenly see that a tree does not have all the branches, but maybe only has 4, and that the leaves are bidimensional textures. So you question your own patterns. From afar, it was a real tree. From up close, it's not a real tree anymore, because you get to the details and it becomes very, very weird.
So it was a quite good answer. So before that, I wanna talk a little about the name of the film and the fact that it plays on New Year's Eve. While the two friends talking about the game's firework explosion sounds come from Jim microphone. So at this point, for example, me audience comes out the conservation and remembers that there's a reality other than the reality inside of the computer screen. So can be interpreted as the footstep of new era. I mean, what I want to ask you is, where is the New Year's Eve located in the narrative world of your film?
Well, I wanted to put Morten in the most lonely situation you can imagine. That's all there is. And New Year's Eve is, you know, in any tradition, is the moment of the year where we gather the most, and we spend the most time together. So it was a perfect situation for me, and it's also symbolic because, as they say in the script, before New Year's Eve, you kind of try and make like a list of memories from the year, and you try to evaluate what the year has been. So it was just a narrative choice, because it was the best way to say, this is a lonely person and he's really longing for somebody, and he's really longing to get out of this world, but maybe he can't, in a way. And but you know, the New Year's Eve dawns on the digital world too. In the end, it's dawning in Morten's world too. So maybe he's at a place in his life where he really understood it's time to move on, and it was very more psychological than philosophical, if you think about it.
So is it the same thing about you? Because you said after 18 years I stopped quitting playing games. So I mean, can we relate this character to you?
Yeah, sure, but in a way I was not that much into the game. Luckily, I think there are people who have been through much worse than me. I was just playing and I took it very seriously, but I still had a social life and everything. But I do remember the mortification and thought that I was kind of missing out on the real life, on the real thing. Even if it wasn't necessarily the case completely.
If we go back this topic, that looking at the point reached today from the pixel graphics of the first video games, it can be seen that a great way has been achieved in a very short time. So based on this rate of progress, I think we can say that it's possible in the future to create the same reality as our own at some point in future. So in this aspect, where do you think this will take us into future? I'm curious about your thoughts.
It's actually something I'm about to expand in my next film, because I'm about to make a film about cartography, and in cartography there's this myth of making there's a scale to maps, and in cartography there's this myth of making the one-to-one map of the world, like real size, and actually new technologies are already capable to do that, because with LiDAR scanning, the laser scanning that I do have on my phone, you can scan things pretty accurately, and it's not something that will come to games. It will be a power technology before becoming implemented in games. If you think about it, Microsoft Flight Simulator has very realistic cities, and these cities are taken from Google data. And Google is a power spot. I think that it will be very bad news when we will have a replica of the world in a digital form, because the uses I can imagine of that technology are all evil. I think we can go around the world pretty fine right now. We could stop if we wanted to, but at some point I think that this replica of the world will be used for military purposes and for
It's like a Blade Runner.
for population control. This will totally happen, and that's why in the next film I'm also expanding the theme of user behavior as our generation's most important political act. Because every behavior that we have on our phones, when we carry them around, we use apps, is shaping tomorrow's data moloch that will create new powers and maybe new totalitarisms.
Maybe we can say that the characters that you create for your new film could be in the metaverse person, like the cryptography, like the we can scan everything, and like same shape. What do you think about that? Making film in the metaverse, or making film with our avatars, maybe?
That's not something I want to do, but if you look 50 years into the future and 2,000 years into the past, you will see a clear pattern of how dead people are represented. Like right now you have how do you know how a Roman emperor looked like? You have the marble statue of him, but the marble statues of us will probably be very detailed 3D scannings of our persona. And with the technology that we are developing, it's very likely that some people will continue living and talking through artificial intelligence and interacting with other people through their scanned avatar and through a language AI that's been built exactly on all the resources that they've put into it. So we are going in the direction where a human being, very accurate replica, will be something that in a way I see it will interact with society. Imagine that Pope Francis, is scanned, utterly scanned, and all the words he said publicly and that are recorded are inserted into a speech generator. And you suddenly have a 3D hologram of Pope Francis that can give a speech very easily. And it will be able to give a speech in 3,000 years. And people will look at, people from our age, and they will be able to talk to them.
Yeah.
They will be able to maybe talk to you and make a podcast.
Also, I want to talk a bit about this replicant thing. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Blade Runner, so I'm a little into it. And I want to say that we create everything to serve us, and we define these beings, their definition. I mean, in other words, maybe there has been no entity that define and express our existence until now. But with artificial intelligence, this is changing, and it's kind of exciting thing for me. And I don't know, it's not a real question, but I just want to say it. So if you have something to say about it.
Yeah, I'm envious of you because I'm not excited at all. I'm very scared of what's gonna happen because, you know, the difference between today's technology and technology from 100, 200 years ago is that this technology does not ever ask if you need what it's doing. It asks for an allowance, but the moment you allow, like Instagram, to track you, it doesn't ask you what you want to do with the data he's using.
Yeah.
It just does it automatically. And this is not my quote, but it's from a film that's on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. A tool is there for you and waits for you to need it, while these are not really tools. And something that goes and feeds on your behavior and then does something with this without telling you, and shares the data combines the data of me, you, and everybody else to do other things without your consent. This, I don't know, instinctively it's an evil thing.
Yeah, like they said, the data is new petrol for nowadays.
Yeah. One last thing is that once upon a time, you know, you had a king, you know, an unruly, evil king, but you knew who he was, and you could see him. He was standing in front of you, and if you were crazy enough, you could pick an axe and, you know, take the head off. But today's king is invisible.
Yeah.
You cannot take it off, and you also think you need it, but you don't. So I really think there is nothing good about it. Any advancement in technology from now on will only be a military tool. That scares me a lot.
It was a good conversation, and thank you very much that accepting it.
I can say thank you for this very good conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.